Hello and welcome everyone to the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance Global Summit. For the first time, a virtual event. If I can have the next slide, please. My name is Steve Song. I'm a fellow with the Mozilla Foundation, also a research associate with the Network Startup Resource Center, looking at shared spectrum access strategies. And it's a privilege to be your host for the event this year. And I've been associated in one way or another with the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance since its birth back in Dakar, Senegal in 2013, if memory serves. And it is amazing to see how the Alliance has evolved and grown in its partnership. Next slide. And just a reminder of the mission of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, which is to establish a cross-industry alliance focused on increasing dynamic access to unused radio frequencies, with the intent of connecting more people, particularly the next 4 billion underserved throughout the world, stimulating wireless innovation, and also, and perhaps in particular, accelerating an inclusive digital economy. Next slide. On behalf of the Alliance, I would like to thank the sponsors of this event, and they include the Access Partnership, Amazon, Aruba Networks, Cubic, Facebook, Federated Wireless, Google, the Internet Society, Loon, Microsoft, and Policy Impact Partners. Next slide. So today we have a combination of live and pre-recorded sessions. And for the live sessions, we'll have welcoming remarks from the National Frequency Agency of France. Martha Suárez, president of the DSA, will give an international overview of spectrum management and regulatory challenges. We'll have Mario Manowitz providing a keynote talk on ITU's response to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and then 2 panel sessions, one on the economic and social impact of the unlicensed or license-exempt band in 6 gigahertz, and another session looking at the importance of connectivity for innovation from a rural access perspective. And then we'll have a closing. Along with this live session, there are also pre-recorded sessions. Next slide, please. Those include a session on how to connect the unconnected or future-proofing technology solutions, looking at new technologies and how they can evolve to create a platform that grows with our challenges. A session on strategic partnerships, on creating the right environment for investment, and finally, a look at the European agenda for spectrum sharing. Next slide, please. So to help you understand how to access all of that, you should be seeing right now the Hoping to Access panel, and if you look at the left-hand side, if you click on the stage icon, that will take you to the live presentation, which you're watching now. After each session, there will be a networking break, and you can access the networking by clicking on the networking icon, and that will take you into an environment which will mimic as much as possible, the experience of being at a live event. And then below that, you'll see the Expo icon. And the Expo icon serves 2 purposes. The first is that this is where the pre-recorded sessions can be accessed, and you can access them anytime today. They will change for tomorrow, and ultimately they'll be available live on YouTube at some point soon. But you can also visit sponsors at the by clicking on that Expo icon, just as you might at a real event. On the right-hand side, You can see the chat feature there. If you have questions or comments throughout the presentations or discussions, that's the place to post them, and we'll see that they get funneled to the speakers to respond if they are available to. Next slide, please. If you're following or commenting on the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance Global Summit on social media, please use hashtag DSA Global Summit. Next slide, please. And if it were not for the pandemic, many of us would be having the pleasure of being in Paris, France, where the summit was originally intended to be hosted. I know I'm particularly feeling the lack of being able to sit in a cafe in Paris, but to make up for that, we have a welcome from Gilles Brégant, who's the Director General of the National Frequency Agency in France. And over to you, Gilles.
Thank you, Steve, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So I'm pleased and honored to welcome you to this DSA 2020 Global Summit intended to be convened in Paris. I'm very grateful to Dynamic Spectrum Alliance and its president, Martha Suárez, to have initially organized this conference in Paris, but we were planning to share spectrum, not really viruses. So it was a very wise decision to make this summit virtual. I'm sure we'll manage to reconvene one day in Paris when the pandemic is over. So just to introduce the summit, this summit really brings together industry and spectrum managers. Presentations and panels will enable to share views and experiences from all around the world on key spectrum issues, but also on how to ensure that spectrum management will be shaped to bring connectivity to our populations. In this respect, I'd like to stress 3 ideas that are important for my agency in France. First, connectivity for all. It is a priority for the French government with its broadband plan with objectives of 30 megabits per second for all in 2022 and fiber for all in 2025. There will still be some remote places, and in this respect, satellite and fixed wireless access will have a role to play. Second idea, airline and Wi-Fi will play an important role for the device connectivity. We hope that Europe will soon harmonize the 6 gigahertz for LAN Wi-Fi. 2 weeks ago, it seems that a compromise has emerged within CEPT on the way forward on how to ensure protection of urban rail systems, which are in adjacent band, and this is good news. Third idea, and Mario will probably say much more about this, the World Radio Conference 2023 will be once again an important milestone for spectrum managers, including maybe for bringing more mid-bands for 5G. So 3 ideas, connectivity, 6 gigahertz, and WRC 23. So now let's come to spectrum sharing. Spectrum sharing is one of our agency's priorities. We have always been looking for smart sharing solutions within ITU and CEPT between all services and applications. We wish to progress in more dynamic spectrum sharing. And Europe is probably a good place to make progress. Throughout centuries and sometimes wars, we managed to share land, and I'm sure we'll succeed in sharing spectrum one day. However, we must find solutions to 3 major issues that you'll be invited to discuss across the panels and the sessions. The first big issue is to overcome mistrust about spectrum sharing. It's to understand how a theoretical sharing solution could be effectively implemented. Here we have the long-standing interference situation from Wi-Fi to weather radar at 5 gigahertz, yet without any solution. And this is a trauma in Europe because with the global warming, the weather radars being jammed by Wi-Fi, we need to find solutions. We have a unique liberal system in Europe in placing equipment on the market with simple declaration of conformity. But this is a challenge for market surveillance. My agency is in charge of market surveillance for equipments put on the European market coming into France. Track non-conformity with equipment sold on the internet, modified equipment versions, software updates, all those possibilities for users to change the settings. That's very complex for us. We need to find solutions, and we ask industry to help us to take this into account and to find concrete solutions to make these two systems work together in the same spectrum. So overcome mistrust. The second point is really about the European single market. The European single market is a market with potentially 27 different sharing environments and databases, 27 different regulations. From a technical point of view, having 27 places working together on spectrum sharing is still manageable, because 27 is not a huge number. But we have to learn how to handle the regulatory and operational aspects of this diversity. And if we manage to do that in Europe, I'm sure it will be a great benefit for the rest of the world, because we find solutions to a rather complex problem. The third issue that we have to tackle, possibly during this summit, is that we need in Europe a first example of a dynamic spectrum sharing based on geolocation and database information. My agency has developed a proof of concept based on the blockchain technology in the 6 GHz band. But what remains important is to have a first case where all European member states would work collectively to put place in a database sharing solution, to put a real database sharing solution in operation. And we will need appropriate harmonized standards for equipment, harmonized database interface, European availability of databases, and so on. So we need to have this practical, concrete example of dynamic spectrum sharing, and that will be very helpful for making progress towards spectrum sharing at a continent level. So, in fact, I think these three issues, if they could make progress throughout the DSA Summit, would probably be very helpful to us to be able to share spectrum as we share this conference together across the seas, across the continents. So I wish you a very fruitful and happy conference, and please stay in good health and make progress towards spectrum sharing. Thank you very much.
Merci, Gilles, and thank you for that European welcome to the Dynamic Spectrum Global Summit. And we look forward to a keynote from you tomorrow, I believe. So look forward to seeing you later. With that, we turn to the president of the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance, Martha Suárez, who will present an international overview of dynamic spectrum issues. Over to you, Martha.
Thank you very much, Steve, and welcome everyone. It is my pleasure and my honor to open this Dynamic Spectrum Global Summit. And I'm very glad that we managed to move digital and to, instead of having our face-to-face event that we all wanted to have in Paris, to have this platform and to, being able to have this meeting and this summit today. So right now, according to the last information I have received, there are 120 participants online. And also to let you know, we had more than 500 people that registered. We all understand that this is a global event, so it's very hard to find a time where everyone can be in a live session. We tried our best, but because of that, we will have all the sessions available. Like we have some pre-recorded sessions, and after the summit, they will be also in YouTube. So I also think this is a great opportunity to have different perspectives and different points of view. So we will have from different regulators from all around the world. We will also have hear from different companies and also from non-for-profit institutions like universities, like donors, like financial partners for development projects. So I think we have work on an agenda for everyone to find something interesting and also to give you a global overview about dynamic spectrum access. So well, let's start with my presentation. If you could please move to the next slide, Dan. So I will just let you know, I just introduced myself. Please follow us in the social media. And I will also give you a few words about the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance. So next, please. DSA is a global cross-industry non-for-profit organization advocating for laws, regulations, and economic best practices that will lead to more efficient use of the spectrum, fostering innovation and affordable connectivity for all. So if we go to the next slide, we will see that we are, this is a picture with all our members. As I was highlighting, we have different type of members, high-tech companies, manufacturers, vendors, database providers, and non-for-profit organizations and research institutions. Next one, please. So our mission is about making spectrum abundant. We think that we have heard so much about it. Like, let's try to close the digital divide. Let's try to connect those that are still unconnected. But it's still relevant, unfortunately, and we still have that mission. We keep working on that, and we see a great progress, but still there is a lot to accomplish there. So we are still trying to connect those that are still unconnected, stimulate innovation, and also accelerate an inclusive digital economy. Next, please. And I wouldn't like to forget to, I would really like to thank our sponsors. So Steve has already mentioned them. Thank you for making this possible. So next slide. Let's now start talking more about like the concept of this keynote. So we tried for this agenda, for this summit, to position ourselves as regulators. So looking from the other side. And we found a certain number of common challenges that are faced by spectrum authorities and by regulators. So these are just some of them: connect the unconnected, and underserved citizens too, not only unconnected, accelerate digital inclusion, stimulate innovation and adoption of new technologies, build coalition with industry, create the right environment for investment, strategic partnerships, and repurposing spectrum while protecting incumbents. So this was the way that we structured our agenda. You will find different sessions targeting these particular challenges, and we are going to hear how we can work together, industry and government delegates, in order to solve these issues. Next one, please. And spectrum sharing is crucial today because of different reasons. I think it's, in terms of coverage, it's not only about having broadband coverage, it's also about making networks affordable. We also see a wide interest in connecting providing rural broadband. I won't go through the details of this, but I just wanted to highlight these type of actions are relevant and are important. Next one, please. So I will give an overview very quickly about the last updates in different technologies or in different frameworks that enable these technologies to operate. So in terms of TV white spaces, this technology enables cost-effective broadband, especially for rural areas. The technology has been proven, it provides very good penetration, and it's ideal for rural broadband and also for IoT applications. We recently heard from the FCC. They updated in their last November meeting, the commissioners and the FCC decided to update the rules. So now they are more flexible in terms of power levels, antennas height, and also enabling more IoT applications. Second case I would like to highlight is CBRS. So CBRS, since the beginning of this concept, the DSA has been very involved, and we are very pleased to see that now there is a full commercial deployment. Commercial deployments started in January this year, and in August, the recent auction of the PAL users was finalized, and it was a great success because we had many more stakeholders being able to access the spectrum. And this is also the first time that we are seeing this type of spectrum sharing in mobile networks, and also sharing with incumbents that have military applications. So this is very exciting. It's in the mid-band, and it's a way to support the progress to 5G. Then other subject, it is Wi-Fi 6. So this is a critical subject for us. We are convinced that Wi-Fi is crucial for connectivity. We are all seeing it during this crisis, and using Wi-Fi. Like almost half of the connections to internet start or finish via Wi-Fi access. So we are advocating for more spectrum for Wi-Fi in order to make possible the new generation of Wi-Fi, which is Wi-Fi 6 in the 6 gigahertz band, so Wi-Fi 6E. And in this case also, dynamic spectrum access will be very important for standard power applications. And finally, I would like to refer quickly to millimeter waves. So these frequency bands are like ideal to enable efficient use of the spectrum because of their propagation characteristics. And we have a lot of exciting new advancements in terms of 3D spectrum sharing. So these are there is a filing there is a process at this moment in the US for the 70, 80, 90 gigahertz band, and it's opening the possibilities for spectrum sharing and for dynamic location databases that are not only on Earth but also coordinating with systems that are flying and on the space. So you will hear about all these technologies. I'm just presenting an overview, and there are many ongoing recent decisions happening all around the world. So we see a great momentum for spectrum sharing. And I like to say it this way, dynamic spectrum access has different colors and flavors. So regulators and spectrum authorities have a variety of options in order to find new usages. In the case of CBRS, this is a model that is very particular to the US, but there are some, this concept could be somehow also used in different regions, and we call that in a more general way TSSM, so tier spectrum sharing models. And they can be also used for different frequency bands. So next one, please. The DSA has been, I took this slide, it's very internal, but I just wanted to share with you, this year we had 32 filings all around the world, and we are trying to get more and more involved. So as you can see, we are active in different regions, and right now most of our actions are in Americas, in the North America and LATAM, but also we are trying to be more and more active in the other regions. So I invite all the authorities that are attending today to let us know about the consultations. We would be really glad to share our expertise and to involve the industry and our members in your internal processes. You can also see in the columns that there are different subjects. So some of them I have already mentioned, but you could see that there are new exciting opportunities, for example, in the 12 gigahertz band or in the 100 to 200 gigahertz band. So we also see that there is a lot of movement and a lot of traction for using dynamic spectrum access concepts in different frequency bands. Could we please move to the next one? Okay, so now I will focus on license-exempt access to the 6 gigahertz band. It's just one of the particular cases, but I want to do it because I have some announcements. So next one, please. Quickly, Wi-Fi 6 has many advantages, like providing gigabit speeds, wider channels. We are right now with technologies up to 160 megahertz channels, extremely low latency that is capable of supporting 5G ecosystem applications, high capacity, more connected devices, and also it's more efficient in terms of energy. Next one, please. for power consumption. So there are three main use cases that are intended for the 6 gigahertz band in a license-exempt mode. So very low power devices that will be crucial and important for applications like virtual reality or augmented reality, that will be very useful for training, education, like entertainment at home, and different, like basically for all the devices that will use, will need high data transmission rates. This will be extremely useful, and it will be more affordable because we expect to have many devices connecting to virtual reality and augmented reality applications. Next one, please. The second use case for license-exempt access to the 6 gigahertz band is low power indoor. So these are the type of Wi-Fi networks enhanced. So we can expect better performance for networks at home, but also there are many industry applications. That's usually we forget about how important Wi-Fi is for industry, and also even in public places like libraries, hospitals, or any public places, airport. No, sorry, this is just for indoor applications. The next one that I was just mentioning was airports or cases like stadiums. Could you please move to the next one? This would be for the third type of devices that are standard power devices. So these are those that we can use outdoor, also indoors, but mainly outdoor. And they will be important for these type of scenarios like stadiums. We have recently heard some news about some countries that are implementing Wi-Fi 6 in those open spaces. And also in some countries, it would be crucial for wireless internet service providers, because right now they're just relying on 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. So that will provide them with more capacity for their networks and for connecting those that are in hard to reach locations. Next one, please. So just to highlight, from this type of devices, LPI and VLP devices can coexist with incumbents. So this is a great example of efficient use of the spectrum, because you don't need to have a clearance process that can be complicated and take a long time, and sometimes very expensive process. So this is an opportunity to continue for those incumbent services in the band to continue operating in the band, and then you have additional new services with like those that I just described. And then for the standard power devices, it's also possible to coexist. So just don't be afraid. In those cases, we just need to have an automated frequency coordination system to protect, especially the fixed links outdoors. So, we think that from the efficient use of the spectrum is a great perspective, and the ecosystem is ready. And we have great examples of regulators adopting new rules for this band. So next one, please. So we think that regulators should prepare for Wi-Fi 6E, and it's important to meet the requirements and demand today. Many countries understood that it is not like a decision between 5G or Wi-Fi 6, it's both. And we have great news about regulations adopted. So we have the case of the US, that opened the complete ban for LPI applications, and also 850 megahertz for standard power applications. We had the recent case also in the UK for the lower part of the band, and we will hear from them during the discussions. And we have the recent cases of Republic of Korea and Chile. So Chile is the first country in LATAM that has decided to open the complete band, the 1200 megahertz, for low power indoor applications. So we are very excited to see this progress. And we also know that there is an ongoing process in Europe. Gilles just mentioned about it, that they are almost going to finish that process internally. And also we have countries in region 3 like Taiwan, or in region 2 like Brazil. And we also had announcements of public consultations from Colombia, Mexico, and Peru. Next one, please. So in this perspective, and excuse me, I focus just on these cases because I wanted to make 3 announcements. So the DSA has been working with our different members and also with different companies, and we have 3 white papers that we are very glad to release. So the first one is a paper about the economic value of unlicensed use in the 6 gigahertz band, and we target in the case of Brazil. So it was done in a partnership. I'm working with Telecom Advisory Services with Professor Raúl Katz and Fernando Cayorda. And we found, let me just summarize the main conclusion. We found that the cumulative economic value between 2020 and 2030 associated with allocating complete band, the 1200 megahertz band in the 6 gigahertz, will amount to $112 billion in GDP contribution, $30 billion in producer surplus to Brazilian enterprises, and $21.19 billion in consumer surplus to the Brazilian population. So we think that this is an important perspective because sometimes people think that unlicensed spectrum is not providing a value because there is no income related to a spectrum auction. But the value of unlicensed spectrum is really high in terms of social contribution and effect to the GDP. Next one is another white paper that we are also announcing during this Global Summit. This is also related to the case of Brazil. And in this case, we worked in partnership with Access Partnership. And we found, basically, our conclusion is that Wi-Fi is a key technology to meet the increase in online activity in Brazil due to restrictions imposed by COVID-19. So we consider carefully the traffic and how it has been increasing during the last months. And we found that Wi-Fi has carried an additional 2.8 exabytes of traffic in the last 6 months. And that is because of the COVID-19 restrictive measures that boosted broadband uses in homes. And finally, we also, one of the conclusions of this study is that additional spectrum through the 6 gigahertz band for Wi-Fi use in Brazil is the most effective and rapid way of mitigating risk associated with spectrum depletion, expanding and improving Wi-Fi performance. So that will be crucial also for the economic growth and also for innovation. And the final white paper that we are releasing today, those two were about Brazil. This one, if we move to the next one, please. This one is about Region 1, ITU Region 1. So in general, it's how to realize the full potential of the 6 gigahertz spectrum. And we focus on Region 1, like Europe, Middle East, and Africa, because that region is preparing for WRC 23, and they have a special agenda item for WRC 23 about identifying more spectrum for IMT in the upper part of the band, from 6425 to 7125 megahertz. So in this white paper, we analyze how the roadmap could be, and we also outline why, if there is an identification for IMT in that band, it will make it really difficult for countries to realize the full potential of this spectrum. So we describe that exhaustively in the paper, and we also highlight like different actions in Europe. The immediate priority is the timely adoption of the EC decision on license-exempt access to the lower 6 gigahertz band that has been under study, that had already public consultations, reports, etc. And in the Middle East and Africa, we encourage administrations to initiate national consultations on license-exempt access to the 6 gigahertz band. So next one, please. With these three announcements, I'm very glad also to give you all more material. We have been quite active in terms of studying which are the needs in terms of spectrum access for unlicensed access. And we have provided some studies about the importance of the 6 gigahertz band for that need in order to solve those needs that we are finding. We are also working on more white papers, and I invite you to stay tuned and to follow us so you can also see those publications in the short term. So thank you very much, and that will conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much, Martha. We look forward to seeing those resources. It's amazing how much the Dynamic Spectrum Alliance has produced in terms of research.